Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sonia and I'm very pleased you're here. If you're hosting an afternoon tea, you might have specific places where you want people to sit. Well, place cards are a nice touch for that. But place cards made of cookies, well, those are just fun and they're so easy. You can get really creative if you like, limited only by your imagination and your cookie cutter collection. Also, while you can decorate these any way you like, I'm not a fan of royal icing, and I'm not that great at the pipe and fill technique with icing anyway, so I'm going to use fondant. Now, some people are not great fondant fans because they don't really like the flavor, but this recipe I'm showing you today is for marshmallow fondant, and I think you'll like it. But first things first, the cookies. Now, any cookie will do as long as it has a flat surface. So, sugar cookies or shortbread, and it doesn't matter if it's homemade or store-bought. Now, I'm using a no-spread sugar cookie dough that I made up yesterday and that I have shown here before, and I'll include a link to that previous video. But even if you use a store-bought pre-made cookie dough, which tends to spread a little when baked, causing the cookies to lose their shape just a little bit. Because you're adding the cutout fondant on top, it won't really matter in the end. Now for this, I'll use two different cookie cutters. And since we're in autumn or fall and there are opportunities for themed tea parties, I thought this maple leaf cutter was very cute. Shout out to my Canadian friends there for this. And then just for something pretty and elegant, I'm using this plaque style cutter as well. I'm going to start with the maple leaf. You only need to cut out as many cookies as you have guests. And even though these are large, the thing about the no-spread cookie dough is that it doesn't matter how close you put them on the baking tray. Now we'll bake these off and then move on to the next step. Okay, the cookies are out of the oven and they look great, so now it's time to make the fondant as they cool. Also, because I'm just making place cards and not a whole batch of cookies, this fondant recipe is for a small amount. And you probably won't have enough left over to worry about needing to store it. But if you do, it stores just fine in an airtight container, shelf-stable for months. So I have here 2 ounces of mini marshmallows, 4 ounces of powdered sugar. Now you can sift that if you like, you don't have to. Shortening for greasing sticky surfaces like your fingers. A little water and food coloring for later. First, I'm going to melt the marshmallows with about a teaspoon of water. Now I'll do this in the microwave for 30 seconds. Then I'm going to take just a little of the shortening to grease my silicone mat. Now these mats are known to be sticky free, but this melted marshmallow is so sticky, you need all the help you can get. Once that's done, pour the powdered sugar right on the mat and make a well in the center. Then take some of that shortening and grease your hands really well. This is a messy job, but that's part of the fun. Then pour in the melted marshmallow. Now get your hands right in there, pulling the powdered sugar from the outside in. It will feel at first like it's not working, but just keep going, kneading, rolling. You're trying to incorporate all or at least most of the sugar. A bench scraper or knife also helps. If the mixture feels dry, add a little more shortening to your hands. And you can add another teaspoon of water, but not too much. Picking it up and kneading it may also help, as the warmth of your hands makes it more pliable. Once it's nice and smooth, it's ready to roll out and work with immediately, or ready to mix in a little food color. I'm going to do both, so I'm going to half the amount I have here, wrapping the first bit in plastic wrap until needed. For this half, I'm going to be mixing in color, and I'll be using gloves, but you don't have to. Food coloring usually washes off fairly easily. Just starting now with a drop of yellow, and then a little red. This is going to be going on those maple leaves. And just like making the fondant, you want to massage in the color until you get what you want. Now, just a little mixing will leave you with sort of a marble effect, which is very pretty. If you keep kneading, you'll eventually have full color. And you can always add a little more color if you like. Then once it's where you want it, wrap it in plastic wrap until you're ready to use it on the cookies. Okay, now that the cookies are completely cooled, I'm going to roll out the fondant somewhat thin, and I'm going to use a little bit of cornstarch to just kind of help prevent any stickiness as I roll. You could use powdered sugar if you'd prefer, but I kind of like the idea of something that's not going to contribute to the sugar. Just instead make a nice powdery protection without adding anything else. Once the fondant is as thin as you want it, use the same cookie cutters used to make the cookies to cut out the fondant. Those look great. Now, with this leftover fondant, you can just keep rolling it. With the warmth of your hand, it will get pliable again. And you can re-roll this. If you don't want to re-roll it, just put it in some plastic wrap and make sure there's, it's in an airtight container, and you'll be good to go again later. And you see, this will fit perfectly on top. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, this is edible glue. Now, if you can't find that, or you don't want to use something like this, a mix of sugar and water, or just water, can work just fine. You're just looking for something that's going to be a little tacky and will help the fondant adhere to the cookie. So I'm using a little bit of that. And on the back side of the fondant, I'm just going to brush this glue. Careful to get the edges. And then as best I can, put the fondant in place. And you can even take your roller and very gently kind of roll it evenly into place. There. And now what you have, you can see the depth of that. There's mostly cookie, but there's still a good layer of fondant that's going to be on top. Just get it on there, and then you can kind of move it into place before it sets. Isn't that pretty? I think that's just beautiful. Now we're going to try just the plain fondant. I did not color this one because I wanted to show you how just a really pretty white fondant could look. I think that's thin enough. I think that's where I want it. Now then, let's do some cutting. Yes. Okay. Here's our plaque cookie. The wonderful thing about this fondant is you can, just from the heat of your hand, you can kind of move it into place on your cookie. And then we're going to just roll just a little bit. And there you go. Beautiful. And once this is set up, once this is dry, then we'll decorate. Okay, I actually let these cookies and the fondant set up overnight. I think that's best with fondant. 24 to sometimes 48 hours is really what you need to wait before you start doing anything else to it, especially if you're in a humid climate. So now that that's done, let's get decorating. So I have here a number of edible ink markers. Now there are many kinds on the market, but it's nice if you can get them with a double tip, you know, thick on one end and thin or fine on the other. I'll put a link in the description box. And I'm also going to use a small paintbrush that I use for food only, and a little water. This ink is water-based, so you can treat it like watercolor. I'm going to start first with a maple leaf. And I'm going to write my guest's name in the middle to make sure I have room. I don't want the decoration that I'm planning around the edge to crowd the center. This leaf is so pretty. I want something simple to enhance it. And now, I'm just going to kind of trim around the edge with this thicker marker. I don't want to make the line too wide because I'm going to be using a little paintbrush and, well, a little damp paintbrush to kind of spread this, sort of giving it an airbrushed look, if you will. Now, if you didn't want to do that, you could just go around the edge like this and leave it just as it is. You know, it's pretty, just like that. But I want to do just a little bit more to it. Dampen my brush. You can't see that, but there's my little water thing. And then just kind of gently sort of obliterate that sharp edge that you just created. And if you need to use a little more water, you know, if your brush is too dry, you can certainly do that. But you don't want it to be wet. And just kind of stroke toward the center. And you can always add, more color. You know, it's a little bit like salt in a dish. You can always add it. You can never take it away. So just be careful how much you start with. Make it kind of even. Trying to be careful of these corners. I don't want to hit them too hard. I don't want to damage my leaf. But I want to keep that sort of feathered look. Make sure everything looks the way I want it to. Let's see. See how that looks? Let's do another one. Again, just very easily go around the edge of whatever your design is. And just kind of go around. Once you've completed your first pass, you can go back around and see if it really is the way you want it. You can kind of fade those colors a little bit more. You could add a little bit more. Just kind of give it that very subtle sort of airbrushed look. And I don't have very much water on my brush at all. It's just kind of leftover dampness. There. Isn't that pretty? Anyway, you can tell. Okay, for this one, let's see. We'll put the name in the middle first. Like that. And now with a smaller tip, I'm going to do some roses. I'm going to attempt to do some roses. Let's see what happens. I don't have an orange in the smallest tip, but I'm going to try this one. Just using the very tip of it. Now I do have a smaller tip, this yellow, and I know it's hard to see initially. But I think we'll be adding a little bit of subtlety to it. It'll be all right. And my green, here's a tip on that for some leaves. Okay. Now, with my dampened brush, I'm just going to kind of blend that a little bit. And I'm going to kind of blur my leaves just a smidgen. Just want a suggestion. It doesn't have to be perfect. But you can certainly make it as pretty as possible initially. Have to get kind of more straight on with this one. You do want to be careful with fondant. Even though this has dried overnight, when you press down with these markers, you don't want to dig into your fondant. So you still want to have a light touch. Okay. Just kind of blurring just ever so subtly. And by starting with the red, I can give that yellow rose just a little more definition here as well. And then you can always, always go back over. I'll do this. And kind of put a little in the center. There we go. There. I think I like that. Here's the beginning of it. And now I want to do something on these little points. Let's see. I think this could be pretty. This little, it's kind of a purple. Just kind of give some color, some design. I have a that one got a little schmutzy right there. I'm not quite sure what that is. This little design isn't anything in particular, I just kind of like it. And that's the thing, that's the beauty of it. You can do anything to this you want. I'll do another one. Don't forget, occasionally you need to wipe off your markers because they will collect debris from your cookie or your fondant. And when you put them away, you want to be sure and do that too. After you've finished, just wipe them off gently and then cap them. Let's see. Okay. And here are our finished place cards. And there you have it, some fun and edible place cards for your next afternoon tea. I hope you liked this video and will think about giving this project a try for your next tea party. If you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up button to give it a like, hit the hype button that helps promote the channel, and consider subscribing for more afternoon tea videos. Until next time, bye-bye.